All right, welcome everyone. It is Tuesday, February 9th. This is our monthly OSM community call. And my name is Phil Gibson. I'll be doing moderation, and I am along with Bridget, and she will help me take some notes. All right, so we have a pretty quick agenda, but we do have an awesome demo coming up here from Sonia. So we're looking forward to how we're doing some logging in OSM. And what I'll do is we'll kick this off. I'm going to do a milestone overview, and hopefully everyone can see my screen here. Just to let everyone know, we did release version 0.7.0 a couple of days ago, specifically 5 days ago. And what I'd like to do is I just want to highlight some of the change log here. We've actually added a pretty good bit of enhancements here. So we got TCP traffic filtering and routing support with the SMI policies and in permissive mode. We also have, I won't read them all, I'm just trying to highlight some of the big ones here. CPU and memory resources for OSM control plane can now be configured via the Helm charts. We added some experimental routes, V2 functionality, which modifies how RDS is programming the Envoy proxy. So if you're feeling lucky, go ahead and kick the tires on that. We've updated our contributing guide. So this will actually assist you if you are looking to make new PRs. We have that process well defined for you. And let's see. A couple of the highlights. I do like the fact that we now updated the SMI traffic access control policy from the V1 Alpha 3 over to the V1 Alpha 4. So that's always exciting as well. Let's take a look at our roadmap and let you all know what we are working on going forward here in our V.0.8 milestone. So probably the most interesting one is we are looking at doing multi-cluster. You'll see here that's issue 1892. So we are, in fact, heads down in developing a multi-cluster architecture for OSM. We are going to update, similar to the traffic access, we're now going to update the traffic split version from the V1 Alpha 2 to the V1 Alpha 3 spec as well. We are actively getting our documentation site up and running. So we had to kind of work with the CNCF and make sure domains and everything was correct. But you'll start to see more of the OSM the Open Service Mesh.io site host our documents. We did make a decision. We're going to keep the development documents in the repo just because there's two personas of who's going to consume kind of the welcome to OSM type of documentation and those who are actually contributing and looking at APIs, etc. So the dev docs will stay on the repo. And let's see, what else can I highlight here? Again, this is open, so feel free to kind of peruse through this. I think we're also adding the support for the traffic split. Did I already speak about that? Traffic split for routes V2 feature as well. So this is kind of what's going on in OSM. Again, feel free to look at the roadmap. Also look at what we're researching and scoping. And, you know, if you want to lend a hand or you have any opinions to what we should prioritize for the backlog, please go ahead and add your comments to that and we'll review it and bring it to this meeting next month. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Sonia. She's going to show us some of the logging that she's been doing here for quite some time. So I'm excited to see this. So Sonia, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Phil. Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia. I'm one of the maintainers for OSM, and I've been working on integrating OSM with FluentBit for log forwarding. So I'm just going to go ahead and share screen and then hopefully be able to give you a quick overview and a demo of what we have going here. So first off, like FluentBit itself is a log forwarding and processing solution that we have integrated to give users kind of the ability to forward their logs to whatever output that they might find useful. It's super lightweight and it's super configurable, and it's also an open source project. So it's been really great to be able to kind of see what it's capable of doing. So basically the instructions for this live in logs.md. This kind of gives you an overview of how to configure log forwarding with FluentBit in OSM, as well as give you an example of using it to actually send logs to Azure Monitor. This is also the example I'm going to be running through in just a minute. And then the third part of this document is how to configure outbound proxy support for FluentBit. And so this is in the scenario that you use your cluster behind a proxy server, so your egress traffic needs to go through the server. We have tested it to be able to give in the URL, the host and port, as well as basic authentication settings for outbound proxy support. So that's something that also we're able to support at this time. So just to start off, these are the basic steps to get started with FluentBit. I'm going to give you like a quick overview of some values that you need to change, and then we can dive deeper into how to configure this further. So for our particular case, since we're using Azure Log Analytics, for this example, I already have my instance created out here. Currently, there are no logs in this instance. And what I want to do to be able to set this up is actually go into the values YAML. So if you take a look at the OSM values YAML, there's a whole section for FluentBit values. So the things that kind of need to be updated here are enable FluentBit. This can also be done through OSM install. We have a flag for it, so it doesn't really need to be touched. And then a lot of these values pretty much stay the same, but the ones that are more configurable to you as a user are the log level, which kind of make sure that you're not getting too verbose of an output or just getting exactly what you need. So we default to error because we would see users probably wanting to use that more instantly. And then as our default output, we use standard out. This I find more useful for, sorry about that, for troubleshooting, but the standard output is not actually useful for more than testing because it just prints logs to the same way as like kubectl would be able to get you those logs. Then workspace ID and primary key are just like for the purposes of this example, we're going to be using the Azure variables for log analytics. And then these three variables are the proxy support variables, which is where you'd put in your proxy server details if you so needed to. So for the example, like I said, I have this instance already set up, and I'm going to go ahead and make some of these changes in the values YAML. So I'm going to go ahead and enable FluentBit. I'm going to change the error level to info because, or the log level to info, just because we get more verbose output in the cases of an example. Very often we don't see any errors at all. And then change the output to Azure. I'm also going to add in my workspace ID and primary key. These are specific to my instance, so I'm just going to go over to another window and add those in. And then the other thing to note right now is that I'm going to be running through the OSM automatic demo for actually this example, because that way the changes that I made in the values YAML are reflected instantly with the image being updated. But usually if you went ahead and updated your image, you should be able to do OSM install, enable FluentBit. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and run through the demo. It's just quicker and allows us to focus really on the FluentBit aspect of what's going on. So I'm going to let that run in the background and then give you kind of an overview of some of the behind the scenes stuff that's happening. So the way that we have the FluentBit set up is as a sidecar to the OSM controller. And so if you look at the OSM deployment, this isn't really a file you need to change, but it's good to know kind of what's happening under the hood. And so there's a section that optionally adds in the Fluent Bit container. Um, it has a bunch of environment variables used to add in the details for proxy support, if you so want them. And then it has the main part is the volume mounts, and this section really is what allows the container to get read-only access to the logs and then pass it on to whatever output is necessary. And then the last piece of this is the FluentBit config map itself. And this is the part you'd probably be most likely to interact with as a user. And so this has a variety of sections. Some are more important than others. So the service and the input section are pretty much ready to go. They just tell FluentBit where to get the logs from based on the volume ones we already set up. The two main sections that you should care about are the filters and the output. So the filters are something that FluentBit gives you abilities to kind of change what information gets annotated in your logs. And so, for example, coming back to the documentation, we have a link pointing to the filters that FluentBit has available. So for example, if you went with the Kubernetes filter, you could add a filter that gives you access to all of the Kubernetes metadata for your pod. And it's as simple as adding a number of keys and values, and they have like pretty good documentation for examples as well. The existing filters we use kind of set it up so that we are filtering to only match a particular log level of logs. And so currently it would be error level. In my example, it's going to be info level. And then the most important part is really the output plugin. So this is the section that kind of determines where your logs actually end up going. So if you take a look at the outputs in FluentBit documentation, it has a lot of output plugins available, and it keeps growing. They add a lot, as we've seen in the last couple of months. So for example, if you wanted to send output to Datadog, you'd basically have to take a look at what keys you need from your own Datadog instance and replace this, this section right here. The last piece of this is just the parser. This comes down to how your logs are formatted based on your container runtime. Most likely you shouldn't have to change this, but again, this is part of our documentation. In case you do need to change it, there's more information over here in steps 3 and 4. And so coming back to the demo's just finished running, and so we can do a quick inspection to see what's going on. So I'm just going to say get pods. As you can see, the OSM controller now has 2 containers, whereas usually it would show 1. And you can even go as far as to see the out. If you query the actual pod for logs, you just see that it's sending logs to FluentBit. And then I'm going to go back to this instance and just run a very basic command to see what logs have been sent here. And so you can see the logs have shown up pretty much instantaneously, and you can take a deeper look into them. It shows you the message for the log, as well as where this line of log is coming from. And so you're also able to see which deployment this came from if you have multiple instances of OSM running. So this again is just going to be info level logs, but this is a pretty useful tool to figure out what's going wrong if you have errors, and kind of send your logs to any of the outputs that FluentBit has set up. So I think that's pretty much it. And definitely take a look at the documentation and everything that you can do with the available plugins.
Super awesome.
Okay, just trying to get off mute. No, that was awesome. Yeah, Sonia, I guess I got a couple of questions. So I noticed you were sending those logs into the Azure Log Analytics service. I guess, for those who may push that into whatever logging service, typically those logging services have like they charge like data rates of ingestions and things like that. I'm curious to know, do we have a swag on kind of what we could expect from kind of data wise, how much logs will be emitted? Are we looking at providing any kind of info like that?
I don't believe we currently do, but I think it would be really dependent on what users decide to output in terms of the log level. Like if you use info level logs, like obviously you're going to get really verbose output and it's going to consume a lot of resources. But for errors or a different level, or like a warn level, you would get a lot less. So we can definitely look into that and get more information as needed.
Yeah, yeah, that might be helpful for people to kind of know what they're getting into. You know, some people might just go super verbose, and then next thing you know, they have a crazy bill from their cloud provider, etc. But okay, awesome. I'll pause. I see we do have some of the community on the call. Any other questions? Anyone wants to chat with Sonia or ask questions from what they saw from the demo?
I'm curious, I know that we saw it on screen briefly, but if you could drop a link in the chat to the part of the repo that has the things you would recommend people to look at if they want to try to replicate this, then we can include that in the notes as well. Because that was very cool, and I think people are going to want to test.
Yep, dropping the link in right now.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask one more question. What kind of safeguards have we been or part of this solution to kind of protect against like PII or any other type of confidential? You know, we may have people running OSM in maybe more secure environments that they may have a little more sensitivity about the data being emitted. Are there any safeguards or controls for that type of data?
Yeah, so with adding this feature, we also did an audit of everything that we log and kind of took a look at what could potentially be PII or any data that a customer may not want kind of out there. And so we opened a bunch of issues and also cleaned up all our logs to ensure that anything that could potentially be protected information is removed. So for example, all of the IP addresses, or like you can also go and take a look at the issue. We have a bunch of linked pull requests, and that shows you kind of what measures we took to mitigate any potential PII that could be out there.
Awesome. Yep. Great. Well, that's it for me. Again,
Do we want to see if anyone from the community who's joined has something they want to talk about?
yeah, we've kind of ran through our agenda items. So yeah, if anyone on the call wants to discuss any maybe open issues or PRs status, we have the majority of the maintainers on the call, and we'll be happy to answer and provide any updates. All right, no questions. That's okay. Okay, all right. Well, again, thank you, Sonia, for the demo. That's cool stuff. We'll go ahead and conclude today's meeting. We will be meeting next month on the 9th. Is that true? Yep, that's true. I got so many meetings I go to, so I got to make sure I'm talking about the right dates. So yeah, we'll see you next month, March 9th, for our March OSM call. And again, if you want to go ahead and add to the agenda for that call, or if you want to actually do maybe a demo that you've been working on with OSM in your environment, and you want to kind of show the community kind of some things that you're solving using Open Service Mesh, we'd love to see you present as well. All right, with that, if there's no other questions or comments, we'll go ahead and end the call, and we will see everyone here next week. I'm sorry, next month, on March 9th, same time.
Thank you
Have
so
a
much.
great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks, you too. Bye.